We are back and we are live. It is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire, here to talk UFC Ottawa. A main event is Iaquinta taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone, here to break down everything DraftKings. Somebody is listening to themselves on loop. I'm going to call out Chris. His new haircut has him completely thrown off his game. Guys, if you're watching live, let all the comments pour in. The hair is gone. He has listened to the people. And the first thing I said when I saw him was, you are going to get crucified. So absolutely let it fly as we break down UFC Ottawa from bottom to top, talking all things DraftKings. I'm your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper, the analyst, who one of them I referenced earlier. It is Chris Olson, and Joe also goes by Sun Tzu. Guys, are you ready for this card that I think is underrated and is actually going to be a solid fight card?
Wow, I got to know if Chris, was it Comanche, Apache, or Cherokee? Because you definitely got scalped.
I'm one extreme or the other. It's all either really long or really short, and without all that hair on my head, maybe I can use a little more brain power. So
yeah, but I mean, why don't you try shaving your face? Because then you won't get like biscuit crumbs in your
No. This is very.
Don't get rid of the beard. Don't get rid of the beard. Keep it trim.
The secret is to wash it with shampoo. It gets nice and soft.
Okay. Well, I don't necessarily feel, Shaun, that this card is underrated. I think it's a calculated move by the UFC, knowing that the fans in Canada are so rabid for MMA that they will sell out a shit card, which is likely what the case is here. And
I think this is a shit card.
I think the Russian card was better than this card on paper.
I don't know. We got Iaquinta Cowboy. I
love that fight. I love that fight.
Burgos Swanson is fun. I love watching. I love watching.
But you got some questionable guys. You got some questionable calls.
I'll give you the heavyweight fight. I don't think it's either the heavyweight fight.
I like the heavyweight fight for DraftKings though. Which is
that's different. I'm talking from a card.
Yeah, from a card perspective. I don't know that you could get it. Let's put it this way. I don't know that you could get away with this card in the U.S. I mean, I think in Canada,
you could. It's a solid fight night card.
I think the main card is pretty solid.
Shaun, I think if they threw this card up in Greenville, South Carolina, they wouldn't sell out. This is a Canada card
because the Cowboy maybe.
Well, the Canadians are such good fans. They're such good fans, the Canadians. I mean, there's a lot to love about Canada. I might move there.
I'm waiting for the punchline, but I don't think we're going to get there.
There is no punchline. I mean, fresh water, clean air. It's nice people. I mean, I like it.
Yeah, worse places. Our guy Gravy Cakes is Canadian, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a Montreal Canadian, though. That's kind of a separate part of the country. But Gravy Cakes, got a lot of good people up there. Win Cowboy, Paul and Cody. A lot of good Canadians.
I will say in general, and not just Canadians, going to go. Everyone, I think there are two types of people. There are the people who just enjoyed that banter to start this podcast, and the second type of person who's going, hurry the hell up, get to the fights.
I'm the second.
If you are number two, you got to give me one more second. Make sure everyone goes to rotowire.com/free, 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. We record this episode Friday nights on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Jump in live chat. If you're there already, shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. You could be listening to the replay of this on iTunes. If you want to subscribe for future listens, RotoWire MMA, and make sure to join us on Friday night. As I mentioned, that's enough of the intro. I'll even forgo the usual Twitter plugs because I want to talk about Mitch Gagnon at 8,500, talking about taking on Cole Smith at 7,700. Right off the bat, we have some odds value. Mitch Gagnon -110, Cole Smith +100. Joe, who you got?
Wow. Look, I as much as I hate to be an odds value whore, I will be taking the odds value here. Gagnon has fought once in 5 years.
We need the odds value very badly.
I mean,
do you know who has had a fight more recently? And I'm stealing this from
Ronda Rousey.
Yep, that's best fight picks. I saw that tweet earlier in the week from Daniel Levy, and
this guy has fought once in 5 years. Like, why is he even coming back? Apparently, he's got other things going on in his life. Look at the guys he beat. I mean, yes, he put up some good numbers against them, but I don't believe any of them are still in the UFC. guys that he's actually had victories against. I'm going to go with Smith here for odds value. Although the caveat here is he's going to be really highly owned because the odds value players out there, the pure odds value players, are going to be all over this guy because of his price point and the betting line value. So, be wary of very high ownership on Smith.
Smith also will be the larger fighter. He will probably look to grapple. Chris, does he get it done here?
Well, he will certainly look to grapple. I mean, basically that's what he is. He's a very relentless wrestler. I don't know if he's a very good wrestler from what I see, and certainly I'm not an expert wrestler, but we watched a lot of guys wrestle. We kind of know what works and what doesn't at this point from watching the best do it. And what I see from him is, his posture gets broken very quickly. He doesn't really, get his hips into the takedown a lot. I mean, he is relentless with it, as I said. So I expect him to be really popular. Not only does he have odds value, but people love wrestlers for good reason, and he's going to try to wrestle. I think that Gagnon is going to be good enough to stuff his takedowns, and I think that Gagnon could out-grapple him if it gets there, and I think it will get there. I see this fight ending with a Gagnon submission. He's also pretty quick on his feet, pretty light on his feet. He's got a good counter left hook that dropped Matthew Lopez in their last fight. That was 2 years ago now. But I just sort of see Cole Smith as a dedicated but not great wrestler grappler, and I think Gagnon is going to beat him there and come away with the sub.
All right, next up, Juan Adams, 8,300, taking on Arjan Bhullar at 7,900. My boy Juan Adams, minus 130. I love him in this matchup. Bhullar, plus 120. Chris, do you like Juan Adams as much as I do?
You guys have to help me because I don't really get why people hate Arjan Bhullar so much.
I do.
I
do too. You remember how we got omoplated? You don't get omoplated in the UFC. You don't do it.
That was a rookie mistake, and we're past.
No, are we? And his striking, I'm pretty sure you could piece him up on the feet.
What do you mean? He's got good striking.
Bullshit.
What? He's got good head movement.
He showed a little bit of improvement in the last fight. No, he doesn't. He's flat-footed.
Of course
no,
he's not. John.
Go watch. Arjan Bhullar's striking is horrible. Horrible.
Wait, does Arjan Bhullar actually know how to strike? I don't think I've ever seen him throw a punch.
He's flat-footed. No.
He's got a decent jab. He's got a power. Oh my God. Okay, guys. Go watch Arjan.
He made a little bit of improvement. Maybe
he's a grappler, but he's not a terrible boxer for the division. I said that in his last fight, and everybody made fun of me. And then he won the fight. Basically, he outstruck Gomes basically. But that's
nice.
Wait, okay. What are we talking? We're talking about heavyweight, Shaun. And here we're talking about
a good striker. If you were going to tell me he could take Juan Adams down and lay on him, I would give you that. No way does he
probably do that too. But I'm just saying. Okay, well, here nor there. We'll get to it, I guess. Juan Adams actually has a decent jab himself. My problem is that Juan Adams is very susceptible to takedowns, despite being a former college wrestler. Not only that, but he gasses horribly. In the second round of that fight against Chris De La Rocha's, Zach De La Rocha's cousin Chris, he gassed so hard that he could barely walk forward in the second round. The only reason that it didn't end in him being stopped was because De La Rocha was just as much, if not more, tired. Arjan Bhullar looks like he's got pretty decent cardio. And so I can't pick Juan Adams here just because I think that Arjan Bhullar can beat him by outlasting him. I think he's got other advantages too. I think he is going to have a striking advantage. He's definitely going to have a speed advantage. I don't think anybody's going to contest me on that. At least I hope. I think that he's the better control grappler. I think that we see a lot of controlled time in his fights. Shaun called it lay and pray, but I mean whatever gets it done. And I think
over DraftKings though.
Well, no, but I mean it's gonna tire out a guy like this, and it could very well lead to a finish. Arjan is the dog in this fight anyway, so 79. So it's not like we need a ton of scoring here in the win. But I think Arjan Bhullar is a much more put together fighter. I think Juan Adams is promising, but still with a lot of holes, glaring holes. So I'm taking Bhullar.
Joe, talk some sense into your boy.
Yeah. First of all, I think Adams is the better wrestler or the more acclaimed wrestler. He's had over 100 D1 matches. Arjan Bhullar is the Canadian Commonwealth champion, which is very interesting because, Cody Safrick and Paul Shaughnessy struggled to come up with a name of who the second best wrestler in Canadian MMA is. So that kind of just gives you a sense of, the acclaimed Canadian wrestlers in MMA. I'm not overly impressed with the win against Gom. Gom is got a lot of work to do before he even thinks about coming to the UFC again. I like Adams' training. I like that he's working on improving. He's in a much better camp. I think, if you want narrative here, Arjan, I think, is more interested in promoting Sikhs, members of the Sikh community in sports, and less about MMA. And I think that Ryan's MMA and pizza camp that he belongs to is not really getting him all that much better. So I like Adams here, although I will say GPP play, high ceiling, low floor type of play. I'm not going to have much Arjan.
Can somebody at least acknowledge that Juan Adams looked like he was going to fall over about 8 minutes into the fight?
Oh, he did not look good. I agree.
He gassed, but he could absolutely finish Bhullar quick. And maybe now he has gas issues before, and this is not something he claims it was due to adrenaline dump. I'm not sure I buy that, quite honestly. I think he needs to finish in the first round and a half, but I think he gets it. Anyway, Matt Sayles, 9,100, taking on Kyle Nelson at 7,100. Matt Sayles, minus 235, coming off of a really fun fight that I thought he looked really good in, despite losing against not Sergio. Somebody help me out. Shaman Moras.
Yep.
Last time out, where he won the third round. Moras faded. You will have to hear 20 times how he trains with Dominic Cruz. You're going to hear that. Just prepare yourselves. He takes on Kyle Nelson, plus 215, who actually looked okay in a loss his last time out against Diego Ferreira, making his UFC debut on short notice. Two guys who showed a little bit of promise despite losing in their last fight. Chris, start us off.
Yeah. I see a lot of people down on Kyle Nelson, and I get it. But, there's not a lot to him as a fighter. I'll say that. What he basically looks to do is he likes to use that T kick from range a lot that we saw actually hurt Diego Ferreira in their fight. And he likes to get into the pocket and sort of throw big hooks. He's got a pretty good top game, although he's not a wrestler. So if the fight goes to the ground, it's probably not going to be on his terms, at least initially. And Matt Sayles, I'm not really 100% sold on him. I mean, he's got good, clean, powerful striking, but what I really don't like about him here is I think he has problems when he gets backed up. We saw that in the Moraes fight. Now, I'm obviously not comparing Kyle Nelson to Moraes, but I think that with the nonstop pressure that Nelson's going to put on, I don't think Sayles is much of a counter fighter. Sayles is the more wrestler. If somebody does go for a takedown, I think it's probably going to be Sayles. And Kyle Nelson doesn't really defend takedowns because he likes to work submissions, so that could work against him. But I don't know. This is tough for me. Like I could definitely see Kyle Nelson, just sort of overwhelming him with strikes. I do think Sayles is probably the more put together fighter, probably the more defensively responsible fighter. I just haven't seen enough from Sayles. I'm going to go with Nelson for the upset here.
Joe.
Okay, so a lot of narrative around this fight, and I encourage everyone to. The best narrative on this fight by far is offered by Cody Safrick, Dogger Pass podcast. So when I first saw the salaries come out, I actually thought about Kyle Nelson a lot, and then I got the narrative because again he did look good in that first round against CDF. Apparently, and Cody Safrick, if you want bona fides, is a matchmaker in Canadian regional MMA. So he knows. Apparently, this guy, Kyle Nelson, is extremely cautious on what fights he takes. even on the Canadian regional scene. Like, he likes to keep his record clean. He doesn't want to take any fights that put him in danger. He doesn't fight all that often as a result. He even took a kickboxing fight because there was no MMA fights that he wanted, and he got starched. He lives in BFE, Canada. Has to travel a long distance to train. Has a day job. So there's a lot of narrative around this fight. Now, Sayles, on the other hand, you, Shaun, said that you thought he looked impressive. Watch the fight with the narrative off, because for whatever reason, these guys were talking him up like he was the second coming of Max Holloway. I don't know why. Maybe because of the Dominic Cruz connection. I thought he looked okay. I certainly don't think he's the second coming of Max Holloway. However, James Lynch, again, more narrative, who I also respect greatly, thinks this is going to be a very easy fight for Matt Sayles. And for that reason alone, I will add some ownership percentage to Sayles in mass entry, but I don't see him making his way into my primary lineup. So I'm going to take Sayles to win the fight, just based on all the narrative. But I would definitely have some shares in Nelson, but I'm going to be higher weight on Sayles.
All right, let's go Nordine Taleb, 9,300, taking on Kyle Prepolec at 6,900. Taleb minus 355. Prepolec plus 320. I think Joe is going to tell us that Taleb is better, but he's old. He's 37. Does the old guy get it done, Joe?
Okay, so I really would have loved to see this Sayar fight against Nordine. But, one thing about Sayar is that he is constantly injured. His entire career has been plagued by injury. So here you go. You've got, 37-year-old Nordine, who is coming off a couple of losses. I believe is a TriStar guy, Canadian fighter. Couple
finishes being finished.
Yeah, this to me is a layup for him, right? Now, depending on where you get your data from, he's going to have anywhere from a 4 to 6 inch height advantage in this fight. I've not yet seen the ceremonial weigh-ins, but he should look like the much bigger fighter here. UFC apparently likes him and is just kind of offering up Prepolec as sort of a layup for him, saying, look, Nordine, if you want to continue to fight in the UFC at your age, you need to not only beat this guy, but you need to beat him, this short notice replacement. You need to beat him impressively. So for that reason alone, I'm upping my ownership in mass entry to Nordine. I'm picking Nordine to win the fight.
Chris?
So in his last fight, Prepolec beat UFC veteran Cody Pfister. But
1-3, Cody Pfister?
UFC veteran Cody Pfister. But it was a super weird fight. I think Pfister took it on like 2 days' notice, and he was literally at certain points crawling around the cage looking for takedowns. So very weird fight. In general, I think that Prepolec is sort of just a guy who is a very willing, but maybe not a very technical striker. He overextends a lot. He leaves himself open to counter shots, and also he's very willing to be backed up and let his opponent take control of the fight. And I really think that's going to help Taleb here. I think in his last fight against Shaun Strickland, we saw Taleb play a counter game, which we don't really see him play that often. I think maybe he got uncomfortable when Shaun Strickland decided to start throwing combinations, and that led to the beginning of the end. I think that Nordine Taleb is going to be able to dictate terms here. I think he's going to be able to back Prepolec up and kind of do whatever he wants on the feet. And we've seen him like to grapple, even though he probably shouldn't in most cases. This would be a time where it might be good for him to do so, because Prepolec has shown a susceptibility to take down, and I think also has 2 sub losses on that record. So that's something to look forward to here. My only concern is that, Taleb isn't really that much of a finisher. More finishes in his recent wins. I think he finished Roberts, right? And did he? No, he didn't finish Oliver Enkamp, but he did beat him pretty soundly. So that's my only concern. But yeah, the pick is Nordine Taleb.
All right, let's talk about Aiemann Zahabi, 9,000, taking on Vince Morales at 7,200. Zahabi minus 150. Morales plus 140. I've heard a lot of people talking up Vince Morales and doubting Aiemann Zahabi. Chris, which side are you on?
Yeah, well, I do think there's a lot to like about Morales. He's a really sharp counterpuncher that has a lot of power. So right away, we like him for that. Your problem is, if you're going to be a counter fighter, I'd much rather you be a pressure counter fighter. He's more of a counter fighter who will let you back him up and look for his strikes that way, which is not my favorite thing. But as I said, a lot of power. Zahabi is one of these guys who looks to be very, very toolsy. Hasn't really got it done yet. I thought he was winning that fight against who was it? Ricardo Ramos before the spinning back elbow got him and knocked him out. He can do basically everything. He can wrestle a little bit. He's a good striker. He's a good counter puncher. What I think is gonna be the controlling factor for him here is, as I said, Morales likes to back himself up, and Zahabi is good at pressuring and also good at keeping the range. So I think he's just gonna have a decent little decision where he controls the fight that way. We've also seen, on the Contender Series, we saw Morales, get outworked on the ground and get subbed. I don't think it's impossible that Zahabi does that. Again, it's a matter of pricing because we've never seen. He only won once, but we haven't seen Zahabi finish in the UFC. But I do like Morales as a fighter. I just don't think he does quite enough. So my pick has to be Zahabi here.
Joe.
Yeah. Obviously, we know the backstory here. Faraz Zahabi's brother, apparently a beast in the gym. Not impressed with his fight IQ. I mean, he only got caught by the 5,000th spinning back fist that was thrown by Ramos. That is not a good-looking loss. I guess he took some time off. I don't know if this is supposed to be a layup or not for him. I'm going to have pretty low ownership in this fight altogether, but I'm certainly going to have less ownership, in Zahabi at his price point. There's so much more. There's so much better, so many better options available, both above and below him in price. So if I guess I'll pick an upset here, Morales, to upset. But it's not a strong pick.
All right, let's go to what should be a strong pick, and I'm going to tell you both, let's not overanalyze. Macy Chiasson, 9,400, taking on Sarah Moras at 6,800. Chiasson minus 750, Moras plus 600. Here's your breakdown. Macy's going to smash Sarah. Sarah's path to victory is pulling guard and catching an armbar, and Macy being stupid. And Macy, the worry is, does she get the quick finish to score a lot of points? If anybody wants to add anything, we'll start with you, Joe.
My only concern is that she did have a bit of an issue making weight. She needed to take the second hour. Past precedent has shown that is generally not a reason to change exposure or back off a fighter. But it is worth noting that she did not make weight first time. She got that extra hour that they allow up in Canada, and she did end up making weight after that. Probably better at 145, like her camp at Fortis. Cheesecake is a Canadian fighter. Has what I would call a submitter's chance, I suppose. She can perhaps, throw up a tricky sub. But I do think that Macy should smash her. Best inside the distance prop on the card. Pretty much a cash game lock. GPPs, it really depends on, how quickly she can get the finish at 9.4K. If you're looking for 11 or 12X, which is what you need for a GPP, you're really going to need, a knockdown and a relatively early finish. So, just take that into consideration, when you're making lineups. But I'm picking, obviously, Chiasson to win.
Chris.
Yeah, as much as I love arguing with you guys, there's not much to argue here. Unfortunately, whereas her stand-up is she keeps her chin way out there. I expect Chiasson can knock it off, even if she can't. Moras is a She needs to get takedowns, as you alluded, or she needs it to the ground, as you alluded. But she can get out scrambled. We've seen that before. I expect Chiasson will probably do that. I think she gets a finish one way or the other here, and I actually think she's pretty safe. Maybe not for that 11 to 12x, but I mean, we've talked about it before. I think that's contextual. I think it depends on the card. So I think she can get 95 to 100 pretty comfortably, and I think that's probably fine.
All right, let's talk about Andrew Elderte Sanchez at 8,700, taking on Marc-André Barriault. That's my guess on that one, 7,500. From now on, I'm just going to call it Marc-André. He's plus 160 as a dog. Andrew Sanchez minus 170. I like Andrew Sanchez's game everywhere. If only the damn cardio would hold up. It held up last time against Marcus Perez. Marc-André does hit hard, but he can be taken down. I really like Sanchez in this fight as the week has gone on. Chris, you with me?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you just outlined the main concern, which is the gas tank. But the opponent here, Barriault, is just sort of a wild man. He likes to just charge at you and throw hooks and lean up against the cage and break you, which is kind of, if we're being honest, if we're concerned about a gas tank, he's the guy that could wear on you and sort of, have you constantly backing up, have you constantly fighting against the fence. So he could have tricked the gas tank. But what I like about Andrew Sanchez here is I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to hit reactive takedowns because Real pretty much just charges after you. And as long as he can get some space, I think he should be able to get this fight to the ground pretty quickly. I do think that, again, it's another one of these fighters who I do think has the capacity and the potential to overwhelm Sanchez. I don't think it's impossible. And if you have a guy, as we do in Sanchez, who has a sort of questionable gas tank, that has to be taken into concern. So I wouldn't write Barriault off completely, but I do think there are enough holes in his game that Andrew Sanchez should be able to exploit and get a victory here if he fights the right fight.
Joe?
Yeah, so I really like, even though the camp has not been on a great run of late, I do like the fact that Sanchez did his camp at TriStar. I think that only is going to benefit him. To your point, that was a really good win against Perez, but the one thing that was absent in that victory was takedowns, which is really how Sanchez has made his living in the past. And that's a little concerning from a DraftKings perspective because he only scored like 67 points and, that's not going to get it done. So we need him to get back to his takedown roots and score. And yeah, if his striking is improved and like he believes it to be, and he can kind of work that with his takedowns, he can score well. Otherwise, tread very cautiously because at his price point, which I believe is 8.7, 67 points is not going to cut it. So tread carefully, but I do like Sanchez. I think he may be a better bet than a DraftKings play.
All right, let's go on to Walt Harris of course, my prices went away here. Walt Harris is 8,900, taking on Sergey Spivak at 7,300. Harris minus 170. Spivak is plus 160. I'm going to jump here in real quick. Guys, I get we know nothing about Spivak, and I'll let you guys talk about all the cans he's crushed because I know that's the one everybody's talking about. I just want to point out Walt Harris is 4-6 in the UFC, and his 4 wins, Joe could beat half of them, I think.
I don't know about that.
It's Chase Sherman. You can't beat Chase Sherman?
Probably not.
Cody East.
Wow.
Oh, God, and the other 2 are gone. God, it's Chase Sherman, Cody East.
What?
You can't beat Daniel Spitz.
Who's the other one?
The other one, never mind. 3 of them. And
okay.
He had the split decision against Arlovsky.
Yeah.
Which I have to give him. I'm not saying Spivak's a world beater. I just don't think Harris is. I think Spivak is live. I think this is an interesting fight for GPPs because either Sergey gets exposed or maybe he's decent. I know he's beat up cans, but we don't know for sure he's bad. It reminds me It reminds me of when Prajeris burned everybody because we didn't know anything about his his opponent. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying don't go nuts on Walt Harris. Please, for my sake, don't go nuts on Walt Harris because he's low volume as it is. Okay, I got that out of the way. Chris, start us off.
Yeah, coming into that Daniel Spitz fight, I really thought Walt Harris was turning a corner. It turns out, because he started off, and that was the main criticism of him. He dropped a decision to who was it? Russian grappler heavyweight who we just saw.
Olenek?
No. He just fought. I can't think of it. I'll look and vamp and keep going. Anyway, I thought he was turning the corner, but it turns out he's just as low volume as ever. He did look good in that fight against Chase Sherman. We put together a nice combo to knock him out, but the Spitz fight where he basically could have beat him whenever he wanted, I think that was the end of the second round, and then he goes to that horrible split decision with Arlovsky where, you would have thought he won an Olympic gold medal when he heard the decision if he didn't know what was going on. So, the opponent here is weird. As you say, he crushes cans. A guy, Ivo Kuk, CUK, who we've seen actually fight some up and comers coming into the UFC before. I guess he's kind of like the regional gatekeeper there, but he's gonna try to smother and sort of wear on Harris and make this fight dirty, take it to the clinch, and sort of mess him around in there. Maybe go for some takedowns. I just can't rely on Walt Harris being active. Now we've seen Walt Harris work some of his own wrestling into his game of late, some of his own grappling. Had Mark Godbeard in a full mount in that fight before the disqualification. So, I sort of, this is sort of a long-winded way, and what else is new in my case, of echoing Shaun's point of, we really don't know too much about it. I think, of course, Walt Harris can get the knockout. I think we should say, and maybe Joe was about to say this, that Walt Harris is coming off a USADA suspension. We don't learn about those now until they're over. So that's why he got pulled from the Olenek fight, I'm guessing, and now he's back. So maybe he wants to come out and establish himself to steal a little bit of Joe's narrative thunder. But I would take a shot on the dog here just because if he can make it dirty and tire him out, who knows? So heavyweight fight, all the caveats apply. I guess the pick is Harris, but I'm up in the air.
And before Joe craps on some of the cans Spivak has fought, Spivak, his last win was over Travis Fulton, who he's got a few fights, but
300.
But percentage wise, he has a better UFC record than Walt Harris. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Walt Harris is 4-6.
There you go.
Spivak's a lock, right? Right, Joe?
No.
By the way,
anyway, the average age of Spivak's last three opponents is 41.6. He has not made it out of the first round. He doesn't know how to throw a punch. This is a ceiling floor type of play. Harris has got an extremely high ceiling here at his price point. Obviously, his floor could be a low output decision, although the 23-year-old Ukrainian fighter has never made it out of the first round. I like Harris here quite a bit. I'm not sure about this matchmaking. 35 is, I'm not making a big deal out of the age difference. 35 is not as old for a heavyweight as it is for, a speed fighter in a lower weight class. So I like Harris quite a bit here. But again, this is like purely a GPP play.
All right, let's go on to Merab Dvalishvili, 8,600, taking on Brad Katona at 7,600. Dvalishvili minus 175, Katona plus 165. Dvalishvili 22 takedowns in 3 UFC fights. He could be 3-0. He is 1-2. Odd stoppage against Ricky Simone. Robbed against Frankie Saenz. Scores well. Katona has been susceptible to the takedown, but he's able to get back up. My issue is just the pace that Dvalishvili is going to push here. Katona is sneaky to the ground. I'll take Dvalishvili. He is also going to be the most popular fighter on the card. So, Joe, start us off.
Okay, so 22 takedowns, 0 reversals, and 4 advances. His one advantage over Katona is his ability to get takedowns. I see Katona better everywhere else, including fight IQ.
I'll give you fight IQ. You think he's...
I look at the guys that Katona has beaten on tough that are better than the one win that Merab has got against Terrion Ware as a minus 550 favorite. In every fight, Merab has been a favorite. Every fight, including this one. I think this is a potential. As much as I don't go looking for this, I could see this as a potential stack fight in cash. I like it much better than the main event as a stack fight. I think I made that point pretty clearly. I could see him scoring in a loss, which is why you're likely correct in how highly owned he's going to be. But I am picking Katona for the win here.
Wow, Joe is picking a guy from SBG Ireland.
I know.
Someone pinched me. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, I kind of, I don't think it's that fair to I mean, it's factually correct, but I don't think it's that fair to pejoratively be like, oh, he's got one win, because the other 2 fights were really close and one of them was weird, and I mean, he could easily be 3-0, just in all fairness. But I think Merab is just he's like we talking about Cole Smith as like a dedicated wrestler who I don't think is very good at wrestling, but we know that Dvalishvili is very good at wrestling, and we know he's not going to stop. I mean, he is a cardio demon. Like, I've never seen anybody like this guy. Like in his last fight, I was sure, and in that Simone fight too, I was sure he was going to get tired. He just never seems to. He just keeps going. And one of the things that I don't really like about Katona in this fight is he tends to throw a lot of low kicks. I think those can get converted for takedowns. Thing about Katona, I like him on the feet. I like his in and out movement. He could stuff some takedowns that way, but Matt Lopez was able to get him to the ground. I don't really think Dvalishvili is going to have that much of a problem. Now, having said that, Katona is probably going to give him as much threat as he's ever had off his back. So we'll have to see how he responds. But overall, I just think this is going to be, I mean, as much as we can say it about a guy with 3 fights, I think this is going to be a typical Dvalishvili fight where he's just going to rinse and repeat takedowns, and I know he's going to be highly owned, but I don't think it can be helped here because I think Katona is susceptible, and I think it's going to happen here. So Dvalishvili for the win.
All right, let's go with Shane Burgos, 8,800, taking on Cub Swanson at 7,400. Burgos the favorite, minus 150. Swanson plus 140. A little bit odds value, I think, for 7,400. Burgos last time out, red flag. I was all over Burgos. He got knocked down by Kurt Halabaugh, then caught an armbar. Cub Swanson has lost 3 straight. He's been getting submitted, but he was dropped last fight by a jab, but it was from Hanato Maikano, who does hit very hard. I know Burgos also hits hard, so people are starting to question Cub's durability. I will say the only man to finish Cub Swanson in the UFC was Jose Aldo, or not to finish, to knock out. To knock out, he gets subbed quite a bit. To knock out Cub Swanson was Jose Aldo back in 2009. And Burgos, hands down, is hittable. I think this is going to be a war. I like this fight a ton for GPPs. I will have both sides. Right now, leaning Cub Swanson, just the unorthodox striker against the orthodox, and being dropped by Kurt Halabaugh is a red flag for me. But again, I'll be overexposed to this fight as a whole personally. Chris, who you got?
Yeah, that Kurt Halabaugh fight made me cry because there was a big contention on this show and everywhere of who was better and who had more power. And then Halabaugh drops him with the first punch, but then you guys escape with the stupid submission. So it made me cry, but we're over it.
Are you over it?
Not really, but I have a good poker face. But I like Cub Swanson here. It's not that I hate Shane Burgos. I like a lot of things about what he does. He's relentless. He does good body work. As you said, though, Shaun, he's very hittable, and I don't see him as much of a counterpuncher. So I think that when Cub comes in with that unorthodox striking, and when he darts into the pocket, I think he's going to connect. I don't think that the black belt Cub Swanson is going to be we're going to have to worry about any bullshit arm bars.
His black belt is garbage.
I'm not worried about.
Absolutely could get subbed.
I'm not worried about arm bars from the bottom by Shane Burgos. I'm just not worried about it. If I'm wrong, God help me, but I'm just not worried about it. Cub can wrestle a little bit as well if he needs to. I don't really think he'll need to. I think he tends to get hit, but that's not to say he doesn't have any head movement. Shane Burgos gets hit quite a bit more, as you might imagine. I just think that, as you alluded, Shaun, I think that Cub is really tough, and I think that's going to pay dividends here. And I think eventually he's going to find the big shot to put Burgos down. And so I see a finish, and I'm picking Cub Swanson, but there's going to be a lot of volume here. There's going to be a lot of leather exchanged, and it's going to be high scoring. So, both sides and yada, yada, yada.
The one thing about the toughness is I will say that he did not look good against Renato Moicano. He looked about 1,000,000 years old. And if he looks that bad standing in the cage, I'm going to be a little concerned. But I'm willing to ride or die because I'll be hedged. Joe?
Cub Swanson gets 90,000 in show money. Obviously in his last, at least in his last fight, he was good at not taking damage. Moicano barely touched him. And he dropped. I mean, that was at best a jab, and a light jab at that dropped him.
I don't know if I agree with that.
If that says anything about Cub Swanson, I love Burgos here. I mean, neither one of these guys back up. I just think that Burgos has got a greater desire at this point in his career to win, where Cub Swanson has got other things going on in his life. I believe he's a co-owner of a gym, a UFC gym. Avoiding taking damage when you get 90,000 in show money is his main goal. So I like Burgos here a lot. I will have exposure to both sides of this fight in mass entry, but I really do like Burgos a fair amount here.
All right, let's go to the co-main event. We have Derek Brunson at 8,200 taking on Elias, the Spartan Theodorou. Theodorou now the favorite, -110. Brun's comeback on Brunson is +100. So you have two very different narratives on this fight. And this is one I've talked about with a bunch of different people. And I want to give both sides because you're going to hear and have heard probably Elias is always goes to a decision, scores terrible for DraftKings, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that is 100% true. But if you look at the other side, you have to take into, if you're going to do that for Elias, you have to take that into account on Brunson's side. 9 of his last 10 fights have ended in the first round. The only exception was Anderson Silva, where he had a staring match and wasn't aggressive. He's going to be aggressive here. I think someone's going out. It's possible Elias gets a decision. I just don't think Brunson's going to let that happen. If Elias is ever going to score well, it's now. Now, Brunson could absolutely catch him and knock him out in the first round, and that would be typical Brunson. It's just if you're ever going to roster Elias, this is probably the time to do so. I won't be going crazy, but I think he's live. Joe.
Yeah, so Theodorou, I think you said it, points fighter. Tough guy, did get dropped by Eric Anders. The narrative on this fight is that Theodorou called out Brunson, probably thinking it was going to be an easy fight based on Brunson's lack of fight IQ. What I like is that Brunson has ditched his home camp and, is training with some real killers, Luke Rockhold among others. For this fight, obviously, if he's got any pride, you want to show up ready when you specifically got called out here. I will have low exposure to Theodorou. I think Brunson is another one of the, and I said it before, a high ceiling, low floor GPP type play. So I can certainly see using him in that respect. I'm going to pick Brunson for the win here, but it's not a super confident pick. And I will have more Brunson exposure than Theodorou exposure just because I don't see Theodorou knocking him out, and I don't see how he scores well, in a decision.
Brunson running forward, it could happen. Chris.
I try not to get into try to get into fighters' heads because, I just don't think, we have enough information to accurately deduce what's going on with them. But the case of Brunson, I think we've seen enough of him now where like he fights like he doesn't like fighting. He fights like he wants to get in there, get it over with as quickly as possible, no matter what happens. Like that, that style bender fight where he was just charging forward, going for these really bad takedowns. It just didn't make any sense to me. It looked like he wanted to get in and get out as quickly as he could. We saw that. It doesn't seem like that long ago now, where I think it was a 5-fight first round finish streak that he had going on before Whitaker stopped him. So he basically fights the same way every time. The reason I like him here is, one, because I don't care how up you leave your chin. I don't think Theodorou can hurt you. And two is I think we've seen Theodorou, because in his last couple fights against wrestlers or guys who could even pressure that aren't necessarily wrestlers like Eric Anders, we've seen him get tired where we really haven't in the past, and we've seen him more susceptible to takedowns. Maybe not control so much, but he's been taken off his feet in his last couple, especially the fight against who was it, Holtzman?
Yeah.
So and especially the getting tired part, which I think is going to be. I mean, if you're looking for a guy to pressure and be in your face and not let you rest, I mean, Brunson's your guy. I mean, I see what you're saying, Shaun. I guess. I mean, like if you want to use your big brain on this one, I can see how you can put it together. Where like, okay, well, he rushes in, he gets his fights over quickly, one way or the other. But I just can't see Theodorou doing it. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's a situation where Brunson is just going to fly by the seat of his pants again and leave himself open. But 8,000 is just too much for me. I mean, if it was like 72 or something, I could see it, but I don't think I'm going to roster much at 8,000. If he does get that finish, because he rushes in with his chin up, Shaun's going to be sipping margaritas somewhere, and we'll all be crying. But
I will be. I'll be on vacation the next day, so that's vacation Sunday. But I'm not saying go crazy on Elias. I know. People are full fading. I'm going to mix in 15-ish%.
In all fairness, I'm going to be close to a full fade. Maybe I'll have like one or two, just because I don't want your voice in my head if he does finish saying, "All right."
I'll be right on Twitter if you full fade.
I know, but so yeah. So my pick is Brunson. I think he's gonna tire him out and get this done. But what Shaun said about the other thing.
All right, main event time. Iaquinta 8,400 taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone at 7,800. Iaquinta is still a favorite. Did this line flip and flip back? I thought it had flipped. -110. Cowboy Cerrone +100. Chris, how do you have our main event?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Donald Cerrone is he's always been susceptible to pressure. Now, in the last two fights, he's done interesting things to alleviate the forward pressure, fighting two very forward pressure fighters. In the Mike Perry fight, he would just clinch up intermittently and sort of break the rhythm. In the Alex Hernandez fight, he noticed, I guess, that Alex Hernandez was overextending, and he would fire those knees up the middle, which were incredibly effective. So I give him credit that this late in his career, you always like to see that. Like Dustin Poirier is another guy. You always like to see guys who, have veterans who have these flaws, and they take steps to fix them. The reason I don't think it matters here is because I think that I think that Iaquinta is the smartest pressure fighter that he's fought in a long time. Iaquinta is smart to a fault with his pressure. In the Kevin Lee fight, when he was landing big shots in the third round, a lot of people thought he should have just been going all out for the finish, but he doesn't. He's patient, and he's very good at cutting off the cage, and he's good at smothering. He throws good combinations. He's got a lot of power. He is susceptible to takedowns, but also very tough to get submitted. And Cerrone hasn't been shown himself. I mean, he can obviously get subs. We just saw it. He hasn't shown himself to be the best top control grappler in his recent fights. He couldn't hold down Robbie Lawler. Couldn't hold down Darren Till. So I think that Al will probably be able to get back to his feet, and I think that Al's pressure is different and fundamentally better than the pressure fighters that he's beaten recently. So I have to go with Al Iaquinta for the stoppage.
Joe.
Yeah, so Cerrone has not fought at lightweight since his loss to RDA in 2015. Rumor has it this was a less than enjoyable cut. He can be hurt to the body. I have been super impressed with Iaquinta. I mean, people are shitting all over the fact that he, oh, wow. I mean, you're giving him way too much credit for lasting 5 rounds with Khabib. Not too many people last 5 rounds with Khabib. I give him a lot of props, especially considering he was training for Paul Felder, which is a completely different style matchup. Very impressed against Kevin Lee. I had Kevin Lee in that fight. When he broke the body lock, you could just see the steam go out of Kevin Lee there. Iaquinta seems to have a renewed vigor for fighting. You hear less talk about real estate and retirement than you have in the past. I like Al a fair amount in this fight. I would certainly, at the price point and at the perceived line value, have shares of Cerrone in mass entry. But my pick is going to be Raging Al Iaquinta.
Just so you know, did the last fight? No, we're talking in chat. Alex Hernandez, that fight was at 155.
Are you sure?
If
it was, he had a really bad cut. You may be right.
For 2 seconds, I'll look it up.
I'm on it right now. I'm on Tapology.
Okay.
I will say, as they look it up, I will say I am leaning towards Cowboy.
Yes, you are correct.
It's 155. I'm leaning towards Cowboy. I'll have shares of both sides. I like the cheaper guy here. When Cowboy wins, he scores high. I just think he's got enough weapons here for Iaquinta. People seem to forget about Cowboy's ground game. I like the knees he threw last fight. Head kick's always dangerous. Close fight, I'm not super confident, but I'm leaning more towards Cowboy, and for that reason, the way I play, I don't hedge a ton, and I'm already doing that in Burgos and Swanson. So I'm more likely to pick one side here, and for me, it's the Cowboy side, but close fight. All right, guys, let's get to hot takes. Anybody got a hot take queued up for UFC Ottawa?
Yeah, well, I got one. Do you want to go, Chris? Because okay, so I'm going to give a play because my last week's hot take was Glover by submission. I did give Brett Apley for his premium content a play, which was to bet both Glover by submission and Klaba by TKO, which I felt presented an interesting arb. So obviously by default that hit as well. So I'm going to give a parlay here. I'm going to give a 3-fighter parlay that pays pretty significant odds. So don't go crazy with it. I think I put $14 on it or something, and it's going to pay over 200. The parlay is this. It is
14 for 200,
something like that. Yeah, it's a 3-fighter parlay. So, but you got to listen to it. So it's Juan Adams by knockout, submission, or DQ. It's Walt Harris by knockout, submission, or DQ, and it's Al Iaquinta by knockout, submission, or DQ. So that is my parlay. It will, like I said, for my $14 and change wager, it's paying over 200. So give it a play.
I think that last part is going to be what gets you here. I like it. Chris.
Yeah, well, as you know, I give the people what they want, and it looks like that you guys have already selected my hot take for me, which is Arjan Bhullar beats Juan Adams by submission.
Okay, I'm looking at chat here. I guess we'll go with one who dropped them right away. We'll go with Mo Scream. Kyle Prepolec, 2nd round TKO. He goes, Taleb throws single strikes, and could see Kyle catching a kick to the body and landing a straight right. It's MMA, and we have seen Taleb finish in his last 2 fights. So, it's a hot take. So, it's not the most insane thing I've heard with Taleb's recent chin issues. I will say for my hot take, let's go with I should have been thinking here. Yeah, why not? Elias Theodorou by knockout.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty hot.
That's a natural one for you, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yo, look, Shaun, I want to give a shout out to our super fan, John Church, and it's like really refreshing because, again, I kind of know how much you play, and I'm pretty transparent about how much I play, and I don't really know how much Chris plays on DraftKings, but here's a guy, John Church. He listens to all our podcasts, gets really excited, about DraftKings. He was, I don't know what his total investment was, but I think he only played the quarter arcade last week, and he may have only put one entry in. He got an 80-1 return on his money.
Yeah.
And he was so excited. And, that is so refreshing. I mean, I'm so jaded. I don't know if I could actually watch fights without having something, where I'm going to feel pain if I lose, and I'm going to really be happy if I win. So, shout out to John Church. Really congrats on your ROI. It was a really, really impressive win, in the quarter arcade, getting that 80-1 return on your investment. So, I wish there were more players like that, and I wish I could get excited, without having a lot on the line. I just can't. It's not in my DNA. But props and shout out to our super fan, John Church.
Thank you, John. All right, guys. Make sure you go to rotowire.com/free. Check out all their premium content for 10 days. No credit card required. Give us all a follow on Twitter. I'm at the DF Sniper. Chris is at Real Chris Olsen. Joe is at Sun Tzu. Like, comment, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and iTunes. Shout out once again to everyone in chat. I was going to read names, and I start off with Eric Raymond. All right. Dr. Van Nostrand. All right. And then I get to Nandalal Rasia, who, if I screw that up, I am really, really sorry. I did my best. Mo Scream, you've been in here. Vince, Roadrunner. Going to scroll real quick.
Good luck with your content, buddy. I watched some of it. I think you're on the right track.
I'm trying to scroll. If I missed anybody, I wanted to give one or two more, but Dave LB. Let's see if I can find one more. That's pretty much the normal crew. There's a few more in here. If I missed you, jump in next week. And, I think I'll start giving some shout outs. And John Owen. So thank you guys. Much appreciated. Love the hot takes. Good luck if anybody else wants to do content like Mo Scream. I like the trailer he put out for something else. I don't want to plug it because it's a little ridiculous. But, go give Mo Scream a follow. All right, guys. Any last thoughts for UFC Ottawa? Oh, I did want to, just because you jumped in, no big deal. I want to say, even though that is my hot take, I'm still playing more Derek Brunson. I just want to be clear.
No hot takes for Ottawa, but we have a really good card next week in Brazil. We got a title fight, Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. We also have Volkanovski versus Aldo. Looks like a pretty solid card.
Now, is that for sure still on? Because I know that Aldo had like an infection.
Oh, I did not hear that. I don't know.
I wasn't sure what the.
That would diminish the card for sure.
I wasn't sure where they left that. I think the fight was still on, but I wasn't sure where they left that.
Oh, okay.
Well, one way we'll be. These guys will be back to break down UFC 237. I will be on vacation next week. I will be in Disney World, but I will be on Twitter. And you know what? I'm going to the podcast I do. I'm going to send these guys. I'll at least give my hot take.
Sounds good.
I will send you guys a hot take. And we'll see who fills in for me next week, and we'll be in touch. Guys, thanks as always. Listeners, viewers, thank you. Good luck in your contest.
Sounds good.